We usually start off these or we usually end our episodes with a hearty fuck Facebook. And I think it's perhaps we could start doing that because that's what the articles are all going to be about. Facebook getting fucked. Mike's going to talk about it today on this episode of the Not So Critical Update. I'm jet lagged, okay? Give me a break.
Facebook owner Meta has first ever sales fall. Their revenue fell by 1% for the first time this quarter. Revenue was $39 billion. 1% has got to be at least a couple million. Pretty big hit. Let's just start with that. How happy are we that their sales are falling?
I'm very happy. Very happy.
Good.
It's
pretty good.
Yeah.
It's we've talked before, like, and actually I'm almost a little surprised it took this long for the revenue to drop. They've talked about missing their subscriber goals. They're in a really tough spot as a business because they have pretty much complete market saturation in terms of users, advertisers, all of their core business fully saturated in the market. They're getting trounced by TikTok on the Instagram front. They're investing a ton of money in VR that's not paying back anything yet. I think there's nothing whatsoever surprising about this story at all, except maybe that it took this long.
Well, the thing that surprised me was that I didn't realize that they had never had sales go down before. That was interesting to me. That means that their sales have been increasing forever, which just seems crazy. I don't understand. Well, it's not sustainable. It cannot possibly be sustainable. So,
well, let's break it down. So they said in that article, they said something like,
sorry.
They said something like 3 billion.
Beatbox podcast.
They said, wait, hold on. Let me get this out.
Really
not. They said something like across the 3 main platforms, so Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, they had a monthly user count of 3 billion. Just shy, I think. It was like 2.93 or something. There's how many people on Earth? 8 billion?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? Now, of course, a majority of these are recurring, right? So you got one guy or girl or whatever who's connecting to Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp at the same time. So let's be a little bit pessimistic with the numbers and say that, I don't know, 1.5 billion unique people connect to their services across a mix of those 3. Maybe just Facebook, maybe all 3, maybe 2 of the 3, whatever. We're talking about over 1/8, maybe even 1/6 of the population of Earth using these services.
So what you're saying is that the growth is actually sustainable, at least for a lot longer, because there's still
maybe not
7/8 of the population
I don't think so.
No, and I'll tell you why. Right?
I'm joking.
Okay. But to take it seriously, even though it was a joke, their demographic is pretty wide, right? In terms of age, let's say we're looking at 13 to 70, more or less, maybe even 80. But if you've captured that market already, what do you have left, really?
Yeah.
What about the other 7/8 of the population?
What was that, Peter?
What about the other 7/8 of the population?
Well, that's if you're talking about 2 billion out of 8 billion, it feels like, oh, well, there's 6 billion people you could still go after. But children, people who are too old, people who live in countries that can't access it, people who live in areas that don't have internet access. There's lots, like 2 billion out of 8 billion feels like pretty much saturation point to me. Do they have some room to grow? Sure, but it's going to be in the margins. But the growth is the problem with essentially capitalism, right? Our stock market our stock market rewards only growth and only over the short term. If you miss your growth goals 1 quarter, CEO's gone, board is flipping, like everybody's fucked. The incentive is so short-sighted that news like this is like devastating. Oh my God, they lost money for the first time in ever. They only made $38 billion instead of $39 billion.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And instead of saying something like, I'm happy, right? As a company, I'm content with, let's say, 100 million users. I want to keep 100 million users. We're stable. Our product works perfect. There are no bugs. Everyone's happy. The features that we come out with are slow and like very far in between. We don't really innovate too fast, but we're stable.
I can kind of see it though. I could kind of see the mentality and the logistics, the logic behind it, which is who wants to aim for just 100 million when there's so many other more people out there, right? If we don't aim for 200 million or a billion or whatever, then someone else will, and then we will become obsolete. So we have to. There's no other choice. You have to.
Churn. I think churn is the biggest driver of an expansion. Look at all the users we're losing, but breathe. It's okay because look at all the users we're gaining. Right. That's the big issue. Is it's very hard to maintain a line of, again, we'll use the number 100 million users because people die or they lose their jobs or they get bored of your product.
They could have stopped at a million. Million should be enough to sustain a company, right?
100,000 should be enough to sustain a company. What, at $10 a month, let's say? That's your model. We're just throwing out arbitrary numbers, yeah? But still, at $10, 100,000, what is that? $1 million a year for, I don't know, a company of 10 people? Like, yeah, that's probably more than enough.
It depends on
what would you do? Sorry, mate.
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Very few people get to the point where they say, I'm now making enough money. I'm going to stop trying to make more money.
And that's
all.
That's capitalist. That's capitalist America, right? I think that's not even just capitalist America. That's just really
human nature.
The Western world, where in other places they are really content with where they are. They'll say, we use Japan fairly often as a polar opposite to the way businesses run in America. Where in Japan, they'll say, we're at 100,000 users. It'd be cool if in 20 years we're at 200,000 users. That'd be pretty neat. Like, you have a 20-year business plan in Japan. That's what you're presenting to potential investors. So what Mike said before.
I think my biggest problem with it is the speed. It's the turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mike said about, if the CEO gets fired and there's a bad quarter, the CEO gets fired.
Right.
I like the expanded time foundation. There's a really cool foundation called the Long Now, and they were trying to build a clock that lasts for 10,000 years, I think it was, and it was trying to basically talk about permanence. And I should have a look into them again. I used to know a lot more.
Is it like that the second is almost hitting one for 10,000 years? It's like
it's something like that. Yeah, really, genuinely. But like they were focused on permanence and the fact that as a species we should be thinking much more longer term than we actually are.
Yeah.
So Peter, what do you think is the future of Facebook, the future of Meta? Is this the beginning of the end? Are investors going to jump ship? People are going to start selling off stocks? Is this a blip on the radar? Like, what's your long-term projection for Meta?
I think they're going to fail. I've always thought they were going to fail. I never understood how they could succeed long-term because it's a walled garden, and eventually people are going to realize that there are better alternatives out there. It's going to be difficult, and I didn't think they would last this long. Sorry,
no, go ahead. I'll say that.
I didn't think it was going to last this long because of examples like AOL and whatever, and because I just didn't get Facebook. Whatever. Like, I don't see why people enjoy it at all. But they're still around. I just think that the head is so rotten that Mark Zuckerberg is such a parasite, really, that I don't think it has like a very long-term future.
John, John, I'll get your answer, but let me also just say here quickly, you know who else is a parasite? People who watch this video without clicking like. click the like button
Yeah.
now. Okay,
God.
John, you can.
Damn, that was very dominating.
Oh, is that
Mike.
too harsh?
Like,
No,
I think-
it helps
think
us.
you'd
Like,
be
click
like,
the like
"Hey,
button,
guys."
leave a comment,
there you go.
comment on
soften it
what
back
you
down
think the
to a
future of
6.
Facebook is.
Right.
Okay.
To conclude, my answer is, Peter, to argue, very rarely, I don't argue a lot of things Peter say or against a lot of things Peter say. Why will Facebook not fail, at least for the foreseeable future? It's because Mark learned from people, from the companies before him. He saw MySpace and he saw Skype and he saw all of these competitors, these potential competitors. And he said, I will give you 2 options. I will sue you to the ground and drain you from inside court, or I will buy you. Your choice. Do you want to be filthy rich forever? Or do you want to see me in court for the next 5 years while you run your investors' money dry in legal fees? That is what he did. And he did it with so many, and so many that we'll never hear about because they signed documents to never talk about it. And he just shelved all of these. They just shelved them. Why wouldn't they? It's just like the block phone. One of the greatest, actually the greatest things that could have happened to mobile, to smartphones, modular smartphones, was bought out by, I think it was Google, so fucking fast. It hit one news article. We heard about the block phone for 1 week, and then it was gone forever. Yeah. Because we cannot let them think about modularity. Cannot let them do the same mistake with PCs that we did, or that we're now gonna do with smartphones.
Here's a question: what if Apple made their own social network? They haven't tried that yet, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
imagine it would fail.
Why would it fail? Why? Think about it. You can authenticate. There's probably, it's super hard to make bot accounts. I think it would actually probably be the best social network.
Really?
Because it's Apple. They just have a better take on privacy than. Is it better that Apple has your data? That's what I was going to say. Is it better that Apple and only Apple has your data, or that anyone can buy it? You and me can buy it. What's the alternative?
So,
I think that's a better option.
So the reason I think Facebook is, I actually think Facebook is going to become more dominant, and I didn't think that until more recently. And what kind of pushed me over the edge is their approach to hardware and virtual reality. I think they are making a really strong push. I think they're obviously competing against Apple to establish dominance in the space. Like John said, they're buying a lot of the technology that they need. Even if you look at the social networking side, I think, yes, their Instagram is getting trounced by TikTok right now, but Facebook has such a gigantic head start. They could easily turn that, I don't know, easily turn around, but they could definitely turn that around. So to your question, Peter, I'm trying to think through, why is it easier for me to think of Facebook competing in hardware than to think of Apple competing in software? I just don't think Apple could do social media super, like they're Apple, right? They'll do a good job with it. I don't see them unseating Twitter or Facebook, or I don't know.
I think that right now, the most likely way that might happen is when Apple build they start releasing VR and AR hardware, and they're going to need, just like with the operating system that was built on FreeBSD, it's now turned into one of the best operating systems out there, macOS. I think they might build a social network on top of the hardware that they're releasing, which will turn into something, a Facebook killer. Yeah. Long-term prediction.
Oh, John seems to be muted. You got to tap your thing. I will also just mention, leave a comment. Like, seriously, though, we love you guys. Watch the show. Click the like button. I don't mean to attack you in any way. Please, please, please click the like button. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go too far to the other side. But
leave ground, Mike.
There's no middle ground.
Seriously.
You get all or nothing.
Okay, Peter, you are. I know. Mike is really ushering us to wrap up here. But what I wanted to say is, Peter is actually right. Mixed reality through Apple hardware with a social network that is Apple owned will dominate the market. AR glasses connected, AR glasses connected to your iPhone, connected to the social medium. Yeah, I can see it. I can totally see it.
I guess the other reason I think it won't happen is because their DNA is as a hardware company. But
it's not true.
I guess you could
They
talk
run
about
some of the
Apple
best.
OS,
They run some of the best.
iOS.
They run some of the best software.
Right.
Their watches are. There's nothing better.
Yeah, I
Their
don't know.
phones are so, because they have such little hardware to deal with. Their phones are perfectly optimized software wise. Same thing with their MacBooks and their other macOS devices. It's the perfect ecosystem. It just sucks that it's kind of shit in a way.
True.
All right.
Like
All right. At any rate, Peter, how do we wrap this up?
Fuck Facebook.
Yes.